Time does a strange thing as we get older. When you were 8, a single summer felt like an entire lifetime. Now, a summer vacation can vanish in what feels like a long weekend. It's as if someone has been secretly speeding up the clock behind your back. Not dramatically, just enough that you keep wondering how it's already March. Then July, then suddenly December again. You check the calendar, the clocks, the bus schedules, your phone. They're all telling the same thing. Time hasn't changed, but your experience of it has. This is the paradox. The older we get, the faster life seems to move. And yet nothing external is actually accelerating. So the real question isn't, why is time moving faster? But why are we experiencing it differently? And more importantly, is there any way to slow it down again? Part of the problem lies in how the brain measures time. It doesn't keep time the way clocks do. Instead of a steady tick-tick-tick, it measures time based on how many new things you experience. The more novelty you absorb, the more timestamps your brain creates. Childhood feels long because everything is new. Your first school, your first bike, your first friendships. Your first heartbreak over a toy that cost $2 at a grocery store. Every moment leaves a dent in your memory. Adulthood, in contrast, is a loop. Wake up, work, commute, laundry, emails, the same grocery store, the same routines. Fewer dents, fewer timestamps. So your brain compresses the timeline because there's no logical reason to store 200 copies of the same morning routine. It keeps one, maybe two, and deletes the rest. And suddenly, months feel like weeks. But understanding this isn't enough, because innocence isn't the only thing that gets lost with age. There is a deeper trap at play. Imagine you're hiking through a dense forest you've never been in before. Every bend in the trail feels slow because you're constantly scanning for new information. Strange trees, new colors, shifting sounds. Now imagine walking the same trail for the 100th time. It becomes a blur. The brain thinks it's being efficient, but to you, the world quietly switches to fast forward. This is the compression effect. It's what happens when the brain begins compressing repetitive experiences into smaller mental files. It's the same mechanism that lets professional drivers feel like a 3-hour race took 20 minutes. And also the reason why scrolling through social media for 2 hours can feel like 15 minutes. The less your brain needs to process, the smaller the memory footprint, and the faster time seems to pass. But the story gets stranger. Because this compression isn't just psychological, it's mathematical. When you were 10 years old, 1 year was 10% of your entire life. At 30, it's 3%. At 60, it's less than 2%. Each year becomes a thinner slice of the total pie. Time isn't just compressed by memory, it's compressed by proportion. So now you have two forces working against you. Your brain compresses repeated experiences, and math shrinks the relative importance of every new year. This is why the older you get, the stronger the illusion becomes. But hidden inside this gloomy explanation is a clue about how to slow life down again. The best illustration of this comes from a 19th century explorer named John Rae. Most explorers treated new lands as obstacles to be conquered. Rae treated them as mysteries to be understood. He once recorded a 12-hour walk as a long and delightful journey. Not because he enjoyed being cold in the Arctic, but because every step contained something unfamiliar. A ridge he hadn't seen, a pattern in the snow, a slight change in wind. To him, the day felt long. To us, a 12-hour walk would probably feel like torture, mostly because we'd be thinking about getting it over with. Rae's trick wasn't toughness. It was attention. The more attention you pay, the more time expands. The less you pay, the more it collapses. This is where a second mental model enters the picture, the spotlight effect. It usually describes how people overestimate how much others notice them, but it has a lesser-known meaning too. Your brain is always pointing a spotlight somewhere, one that determines what actually registers as experience. When the spotlight is narrow and automatic, like during routine habits, your brain records nothing. But when the spotlight widens and becomes deliberate, more of life gets encoded. And encoded moments stretch time. But simply deciding to pay more attention doesn't solve the problem. Because modern life trains the spotlight to focus on the wrong things. Notifications, calendars, deadlines, and micro-distractions constantly hijack it. You're present, but in the wrong direction. Not absorbing life, just managing it. This brings us to the counter-argument. Skeptics might say the compression effect is inevitable, just biology and math teaming up to shrink life. They might argue that adulthood is inherently repetitive, and there's no realistic way to inject wonder into grocery shopping or tax season. And they're not entirely wrong. You can't turn every commute into a spiritual awakening. You can't make your mailbox feel like the first day you saw snow. But the logic breaks when skeptics assume novelty must be dramatic to count. Time dilation isn't caused by grand adventures. It's caused by micro-novelty, the tiny unpredictability the brain finds meaningful. There's a reason a 5-minute conversation with a stranger can feel richer than a week of emails. The event is small, but the impression is new. There's also a cultural force accelerating this compression: hyper-efficiency. Productivity culture teaches people to automate their days, optimize their habits, and eliminate friction. Ironically, the more efficient life becomes, the more forgettable it becomes. A perfectly optimized routine is a perfectly compressed one. No extra memory, no extra time. So the real enemy isn't age, it's autopilot. And autopilot isn't a biological destiny. It's a habit. This is where another supporting mental model enters: the peak end rule. It states that memories are shaped not by the length of an experience, but by its emotional peaks and its final moments. If your days have no peaks, and every day ends more or less the same, then the weeks blend, the months vanish, and the years dissolve. If you want to slow time, you don't need more hours. You need more peaks. This doesn't mean chasing adrenaline or forcing yourself to live like a travel influencer. The compression effect is reversed not by dramatic change, but by intentional variation. Take a new route to work. Rearrange a room. Try a new recipe. Read a genre you never touch. Spend 10 minutes watching the clouds instead of 10 minutes doom scrolling. These tiny deviations create micro-novelty, small peaks, and the brain stretches to store them. You slow time by interrupting your own predictability. And attention is the lever. The more attention you give to the present moment, the less your brain compresses it. Not the forced, performative kind of attention where you try desperately to be mindful, but the gentle kind where you let yourself be curious about one small thing a day. One new sensation, one new taste, one unexpected detail. If childhood taught us anything, it's that time expands when everything feels worth noticing. And this brings us back to that strange feeling you get when a year disappears without warning. Time wasn't speeding up. Your experiences were shrinking. But the beautiful part is that you can reverse the shrinkage. You can slow time, not by fighting the clock, but by giving the world more dents, more timestamps, more meaning to record. The clock never changed. But now, maybe you will.